welcome to Dive Right In. I'm super excited to have you guys on today. You both have such varied backgrounds, very different, two sides of the same coin in kind of a way. Daryl, you came from the business world, you're a biochem major, you have a degree from Rhodes, you have all this education. So for me, I go, okay, well, why would you get into fashion? And then Bret, I'm like, what are you gonna waste? What are you wasting all that education on getting into fashion? I understand Bret. Bret's an artist. You're a creator. Like, I understand.
Definitely not a Rhodes scholar in any sort of way. He's the Mr. Smarty Pants. I'm the arty guy.
Well, that's the thing is that it does take both of those elements, because I think a lot of artists, and we can get into this later, but a lot of artists get into business and they forget at the end of the day that it is a business and there is things to be managed and there's P&Ls and all the cash flows and boring stuff that you don't think about when you're just you're worried about creating beautiful things. So how did you guys meet and how did you get started with this?
God. We met a long time ago.
We met a long time ago. So I got into fashion technically about 13 years ago with a mutual friend. So it was a really good friend of mine who was a designer, trained in New York, had his own line. He introduced me into fashion. So I learned fashion from the ground up. So it was almost like I got a third degree on top of everything else. And through that, we met Bret from photography. So he did a lot of photography for the original line, which I still carry on underneath SOUNDOFF. And through that photography work, when SOUNDOFF became its own thing, Bret and I branched off and kind of merged, kind of our two worlds together. So it started in one
for a long time,
became something else.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, the one thing I love about SOUNDOFF in particular is there is this message of inclusivity. And I think especially in streetwear, there is this, you're waiting for the next drop. It's all this exclusivity and the price points are ridiculous. And it creates this kind of crazy demand for something that's, you're not really, first off, like Supreme's never done anything for me, right? Like having that label on me doesn't do anything. It just, besides me saying I've got Supreme on, and maybe some people think it gives them a little bit of clout. I love where your price point is at. I love what your messaging is. I love the fact that it's activism, but it's not beating you over the head. I feel like it's cool first, and then you go, oh, this actually has a message. Is that a conscious effort?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things like we sort of started with at the genesis was not only talking about the world, not only speaking truth, not only saying something with the brand, but I think it was also about like, how do we make stuff that people also just really want to wear, that is just a piece of art, and it isn't something that like just makes a statement for like a month and then you toss it. It's something that you really kind of care about. So in a lot of our sort of creative meetings, we have conversations about like where we want to go, things that we're sort of talking about. And then I start to think about what is the metaphor for this concept, so it's not about taking words right out of a newspaper and like slapping it on a shirt. It's thinking about like, how do I create an idea that you look at and you're like, oh, wow, I get it. That's cool. And then you want it on the shirt. And then that idea also speaks to your own personality and activism and kind of who you are.
Yeah, and I think
so.
Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, the brand is built around, we're all individuals. I mean, we all have an individuality, about us and a personality. So we wanted to create the pieces that connected us in terms of like, we all want cool style. We all want, kind of a street game, but, we also want to convey something about us, about what we believe. And, again, to your point, you don't have to hit yourself upside the head, to do activism, to show people that, I believe in inclusivity. I believe in love is love. I believe in, like Black Lives Matter, but, whatever it is, you can do that, but still carry a street game.
Yeah. And I think that seems to be the problem these days is you have a lot of people who are kind of capitalizing on these activism movements. Black Lives Matter is obviously, a prime candidate for that, who aren't, they're just slapping on a shirt or slapping a slogan on a shirt, and they know that it's something that's punchy and it's in the news cycle and it's going to sell, but it doesn't last forever. And like the last thing we need is another, fast fashion or something that's disposable fashion. I love the real long-term tangibility and wearability of your goods, which is, I'm a big fan. I did a lot of research, and I was just like,
oh, that's awesome.
I was
Thank
like,
you.
I'm obsessed with the Savage Beast collection. so
bring out your own like Savage Beast from the inside and like put it out.
Exactly. And one thing I noticed, so I look at, if I look at your Instagram, I look at your website, there is no men's and women's section. There's just sizes, and there's just, obviously I feel like that was a conscious effort to, be gender neutral and just say like, these are the clothes, wear them how you want to wear them.
Yeah, no, it was intentional to not, break people into more sections and more compartments. So, whoever wants to wear it can wear it. However they want to wear it, it's ours to give to you, and like you style it the way you want to wear it.
We also just did a photo shoot recently where we worked with people from the LGBTQ community. We work with people who, have a broad multicultural spectrum. And it was really kind of powerful the way that people were sort of responding to certain things on like their bodies in different ways. I mean, we've had guys put on our clothes in ways that, an outsider might look at and be like, you're feminizing that, or women who are wearing it are doing something that is sort of in a masculine, sort of baggy sort of way. But we really think that like those paradigms, pardon my French, are kind of bullshit. Like fashion is your the way that it makes you sort of feel. And these ideas that we've sort of been stuck in for a long time, we're just sort of saying, hey, we're not going to do that. We really are going to be for everyone, and we want our clothes to kind of speak for everyone. And we also, to go back to what you were talking about in terms of other brands, like obviously we don't think about other brands and like what other people are doing. You just got to think about what you're doing.
Sure.
But it's really important as artists that you take your gift from the world and you put it out in the world in a positive way. So when we talk about like, we want to support Black Lives Matter, or we want to support, we just worked with an organization that was getting PPE out to people. And it was so important for us to just, think about like, how do we donate capital? How do we create garments that are engaging to people and that will help us kind of not only drive what we're doing, but drive things to them as well, because that's really all any of us can do right now. Mm-hmm. Like as an artist, as a person, all you can do is take your gift and do the best that you can to leave the world better than it was when you got here.
That's the irony too. You hear all these people, especially on the more right side, saying, don't get an art degree, liberal arts degree is bullshit. And then yet there's this mass demand all the time for people to create art and keep putting out amazing shit. It's like, where do you think that comes from?
Yeah.
That's the irony of that. So how would you define streetwear today? I mean, I was a child of the 90s. I grew up with, I don't know if you remember brands like Cross Colors, Karl Kani, Fubu. I would get such shit because I grew up in suburban Detroit for wearing all sorts of stuff and be like, oh, you're a wigger, you're this, you can't wear that. It was a very different world and a different landscape. But definitely, my family thought I was fucking crazy for the most part because I'd be blasting hip hop and wearing all sorts of different clothes, and they were just like, what?
I think you should go find those clothes and pull them out because those clothes are the dope shit right now.
It's all in Urban Outfitters.
But you could take our stuff and put it with that, and you would be fucking fly as fuck. So make that happen.
Yeah.
But in terms of defining streetwear, I'll let you kind of speak to that because you have a really good understanding of like what we're doing.
Yeah. Streetwear is wherever you want to make it. Literally, it's individuality, to a great degree. Some define it based on brand, so like, Supreme is the streetwear brand, because, they've done a lot of marketing around that and they have a lot of PR around that. But, I think since the genesis of Supreme and a lot of the other brands, people have really just taken the idea of, just how do you bring individuality into your look, and not be so defined to like, I only wear this to work, I only wear this to go out, I only wear this for play. And it's kind of like, how do you juxtapose it all together? Because we don't really live kind of like in set like 8 to 5, 5 to 9 lives anymore.
Especially
so, it's really like, can you get a snapback into an office? Yeah, if you know how to pair it.
Yeah.
You can. I've worn Converse to the office, I think, for the last 2.5 years. But it's just kind of literally thinking about, what works for you, because the worst thing about streetwear is wearing something that feels like a costume, because you're trying to like match something that's like, oh, that's streetwear, and if you're not comfortable in it, it will never look the way you want it to look, because it looks like you're wearing something that's not reflecting you. So if you truly just embrace, are you a t-shirt, are you like kind of a snapback, are you like a hoodie, are you kind of this, and then just figure out how to like play a twist on it and like what your life is about, that's streetwear to me. It's just kind of literally the juxtaposition.
Yeah, I love that. For me, like I could never do the long t-shirt, the long t-shirt thing with the like skinny jeans. Like I see people wearing. I'm like, I got too much legs and ass for that. I was a professional dancer. Like I do not look good.
You're a big CrossFitter. I was stalking your Instagram too. So.
Yeah, I do. I do way too many weights to get into those skinny jeans. So kind of talking about fashion and, emulating different cultures. A lot of people do get called out for, this is before this term wasn't thrown around as much when I was a kid, but there are a lot of people who, if I was doing that today, I feel like it'd be like, oh, you're culturally appropriating. This doesn't belong to you. This isn't your life or your lifestyle, and it doesn't. That's the one thing I feel like trying to break down that barrier of what's your thought on cultural appropriation?
Yeah, so it's funny. One of our designs we've done, I think for the last 2-3 years, is the Soul Idol, and it's our headphone with the Afro and the Afro pick, and we've done it in various different iterations. And I've had friends, Caucasian white friends who. Like, I love it, but I don't feel comfortable wearing it. I don't think it's something I can wear. And I asked them, like, why? Like, why do you feel uncomfortable wearing it? And they bring up, like, is it cultural appropriation for me to wear something of that icon? And it's like, it's cultural appropriation depending on how you're wearing it. If you're wearing it as a support of, I know what this means, that's not cultural appropriation. If you're wearing it because you think it gets you into something, that's cultural appropriation. So, the idea of like Sound Off is that we can take icons and elements and give it a new life of embracement around whoever wants to wear it. If you're embracing Black Lives Matter, wear the Black Lives Matter t-shirt, wear the names. If you're Caucasian, if you're Black, if you're Asian, if you're Hispanic, it's about unity, inclusivity, not about saying, oh, I can't wear that because that's really more for a person of this color to wear. Then we continue the same path. Like we will never, ever get to the point of actually understanding what makes us different. And that's great. If we continue to like compartmentalize what one can wear, what one not can wear, and this and the other. So that's.
We actually got called out a couple of times because I do a lot of our social media stuff. And there were, and there's always going to be 2,000 people who don't like what you're doing on social media. I mean, it could be puppies running around and still there'd be 2,000 people who fucking hate it. But there were a couple of people who called out, like I would post a picture of a white model in something, and I would also say in like the hashtags, Black Lives Matter, and people would be like, why are you saying that right now? And I'm like, white people can think Black Lives Matter. That's the whole point. Like, what are we doing that you're like, oh, only Black models can have this hashtag? I'm like, do you not understand that we're trying to get to the place where everyone thinks Black Lives Matter. You know, the idol that he's talking about, the shirt, that's not cultural appropriation, it's cultural appreciation. It's saying something amazing and beautiful about this you know, Black idea and Black hair, and a specific almost like moment in time when that was really big, and it's sort of kind of coming back. It's an appreciation of that.
And I feel that too, because I mean, I come from the food world as well, and I cook, majority of the food I cook is Asian food, and I embrace it. And it's one of those things that for me, it's like, it's more of an homage than me kind of biting or ripping somebody's style for some kind of selfish purpose. It's like, you do see a lot of people who, especially in this day and age, are like, will do the virtue signal thing, like, oh, I'm so, you know, I'm really cool, and then they take that shirt off, and that's where it ends. And that's the problem between this faux activism and actual allyship, is that there's like, and that's something that I noticed when I was, you know, kind of going back to when I was a kid, and even when I was wearing cross colors or some kind of streetwear brand, I could take that off at the end of the day. And I was a white male in America, and I didn't have to worry about a lot of those other things. So I think it's really connecting people with those two things, that like there's a responsibility with what you're doing and what you're buying.
Absolutely.
And
I think it's also a thing where like, and let's start that conversation. You know, if you're really a white person and you're looking at something like, especially a piece of clothing, because at the end of the day, I mean, like, I love clothing and I love art, but it's not brain surgery. It's not nuclear science. So if you're really worried about putting on a piece of clothing, then let's talk about where that worry is sort of coming from, and start to break down why you would think it's wrong for you to wear a shirt, you know, or it's wrong for you to support this person instead of having like, and then that's how people go into their little boxes and they're afraid. And that's where you get the whole white fragility thing from, is because people then can't have a conversation about it. You know, we've also got to break down all of that bullshit too, so that people can have a real conversation about, you know, what's actually going on in the world.
So the brand, I mean, the interesting thing is to look at the brands. If all you see of them doing anything around LGBTQ is in June.
And the rainbow, and that's it, yeah.
Yeah, the rainbow and Skittles blew up literally everywhere. What are they doing in the other 11 months of the year?
Yeah.
Like, if the only time you see them with Black models is in February, what are they doing the other 11 months in a year? So it's like, are you truly embracing, or are you really kind of taking advantage of an opportunity, because you know that there's a marketing spend that will bring people in? So like, when are you really an ally, you know, versus a marketing line in a budget?
People can have rainbow socks every month. You know, well, it's just okay. Love is love all the time.
Yeah, that's the weird notion, is that we have to try to put these things into go. Okay, well, February's for Black people, June's for the gays. It's like, why the fuck isn't every day of the year for everybody? And I think that's
absolutely.
I caught a lot of shit. So I was hosting an earlier podcast, and I had a friend of mine who is a host of the news, and I was kind of making a talk about inclusivity, and just saying that, kind of going back to the faux allyship, having people marching through the streets and like going up to people at restaurants and like making them raise a fist and like forcing people to, in a violent way. And I caught a lot of shit saying like, well, what's the goal here? Like, are we trying to get people to join? I mean, would you rather somebody raise a fist in fake solidarity, or actually, like you said, support you 12 months out of the year, and try to be inclusive? And that was one of the things when I was researching your brand. I was like, this is what I love about these guys. It's not like, it's really trying to bring everybody together into this, you know, big tent with the same message.
Yeah. No, for us, you know, like, everyone loves a t-shirt. So, you know, if everyone loves a t-shirt, maybe everyone can love each other. So maybe love is love on a t-shirt can actually connect the dots. So,
and it's, I guess it's also an easy way to start to relate to people, you know, because fashion is something that everybody does want to be a part of. Everybody does want to wear cool clothes and feel great. And, you know, we do a lot of stuff, even though we're a streetwear brand, where we're really thinking about details and, you know, putting together really great fabrics and embroidery and patches and all of this stuff. if we can also in that message have the activism of saying Black Lives Matter, of saying love is love, of saying trans lives matter, of saying, you know, queer people are important, a woman's right to choose is important, you know, healthcare for everyone is important, our environment is important. But we do that in a way where, you know, once again, we're using these metaphorical ideas. It is a little bit less beating somebody like they're a pinata and, you know, reaching out to shake somebody's hand, I think.
And what do you guys feel like the next phase of streetwear is going to be? Like, where is it? What's the new emerging trends, or where do you think it's going?
The elevation.
Streetwear, you know, in my mind, particularly, I think coming out of 2020, and, you know, being less office-based, not so much in our regular routine. I think there's going to be an elevated streetwear that's going to emerge in 2021. So the idea that you can get work done and be comfortable and be in your own personality and not be constricted to, like, you have to wear a suit and tie and white shirt and show up, you know, in this cubicle every day. Like, productivity and creativity, I think, is going to come much more into crosshairs together. And I think streetwear is where we've already seen creativity. And now you're seeing some of the brands that have been much more traditional beginning to pick up on, hey, there's a way of taking an idea that's kind of more traditional and giving it a little bit more of a street spin, you know, by, you know, softer fabrics, things that like feel a little bit more comfortable, and things you could wear to work, you know, so when we do go back to some kind of office environment, but you can also go after work and do things as well. So breaking some of the boundaries, breaking some of the tech innovation boundaries. So I think we'll see some new tech in fabrics and things of that nature. And I think just this elevation of style, that you can create, you know, your own identity and be just as productive and be, you know, probably even more productive.
Because you feel comfortable, yeah.
Yeah, if you feel like, you know, hey, I'm in my zone, like I'm not wearing a costume.
Absolutely, and it's also the form is function idea. Because of COVID, I think so many people have spent so much time like at home and kind of in your own space, and it is really true that what you wear and the way your space looks is very reflective of like your mental state and how you feel about yourself. So if we can also, you know, this idea of elevated street, of like waking up in the morning, I'm still putting on stuff that I would feel comfortable going on a date in, or like going out to dinner with, or something like that. But it's also office wear because I'm going to be on a Zoom call, or I will take like an office meeting or something. That intersection of taking care of yourself and having it feel good, look good, be creative, that's really where it should be anyway.
It is really interesting, the mentality of, I know for me, like I have, when I put a suit on, which is on most days, I put a suit on and it's tailored exactly the way I want it. It's a fabric that I want. And it really does feel like an armor. It feels like you're preparing for battle in a way that, like, you never know what's going to happen when you walk out the door. And it does give you that sense of just like, okay, I'm ready for this. So I love that you're translating that into the elevating the streetwear.
Yeah. And I think still, you know, I have suits. I love suits. I mean, I grew up, I started corporate in like the most corporate of corporate at Arthur Andersen, where, you know, I wore a blue shirt under a suit and like literally you thought I was like, you know, going to be burned at the stake of like, that's blue. I'm like, I know, it's a color. Get shot. So, you know, suiting, you know, if I'm going for an interview, I'm going to probably wear a suit. You know, it's like, now maybe interviews in the next 2-3 years might be like not as much tie, you know, you might be able to kind of do more like a cool blazer pant and shirt, you know, but, you know, it's still going to be the rules of, if you're going to go impress for a job or for a first impression on a date, you know, give it a little bit more polish. Than if you're going to go Saturday and kind of go hang out, you know, at, you know, a concert, you know, on a Saturday afternoon. So I think the rules are still going to be, think appropriate for the setting, but not so, you know, okay, I got to get a black suit, a white shirt, a black tie, and that's what I have to wear to go for an interview.
All right.
So,
Well, I'm putting in a request for like a really dope double-breasted blazer and like a cool pattern.
don't bring up anything that requires cut and sew.
I want to do cut and sew so badly. We will get
Requests.
there at some point, but he literally.
I just want to do
his
cut.
whole brain.
It's gonna be
will,
cut. I'm cutting.
Fucking explode all over me.
No.
Because it is a very complex sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, every year we do more and more with the brand. Every year it becomes more. The brand itself becomes more and more elevated. So you never know where we're going to go or what we're going to do.
I love that you guys are in Chicago. You know, everyone associates fashion with New York or LA, you know, really, you know, very New York centric. I lived in New York for the last 10 years and you see a lot of obviously high fashion there. Was it a conscious effort? Obviously you guys are both Chicago boys. Was it a conscious effort to keep it close to home?
Yes.
Hard stuff. No, Chicago has its own beautiful, very street, very sort of gritty vibe. And we both love New York very much. Chicago, you're a foodie guy. Obviously, Chicago has so much beautiful foodie culture, so much beautiful architecture. There are a lot of things in Chicago that are very inspiring to us. The city absolutely has its own life and romanticism and like cool vibe that I think is a part of our aesthetic also.
I mean, you know, I've been in New York countless times, you know, for the women's line that I still have, and I did. I go there for fashion, for fabric. I go there for I mean, I know the district fairly well. You know, art is not relegated to two cities in the U.S. in terms of there's a lot of creative talent in Chicago. You know, Nashville. I mean, you're seeing the secondary
Detroit.
cities in the middle begin to show like there's an art community. You know, what LA and New York have huge advantage over Chicago is their cities have built industry around it. They have made investment of, you know, the editorial, the brand, the PR, the marketing. You know, they made centers of excellence to make them destinations. So, but it does not mean that there is not, you know, equal inspiration and talent and capability. It's harder. I mean, to a certain degree, you wear a badge even more to come out of somewhere like Chicago, because like you literally have to hit the rungs a little harder.
You got to be scrappy
on the ladder to be scrappy to become a national brand. I mean, so it gives us a little bit more of a challenge.
But I think that's kind of like the thing that we learned in COVID too, is like you can create from anywhere. And that's like everyone was sheltering in place and it's like, now we're realizing, well, you don't have to go to this centralized place to bang out these goods or be creative in this one space. Everyone's kind of spread out and doing their own thing. And I feel like, especially in New York, it got so crazy expensive that all of that art and all of those people who were emerging kind of got pushed out and further. And I'm from Detroit. I saw, you know, people going back to Detroit and taking over warehouse buildings and starting new projects there. Or like every one of my friends, like the big move was to go to Chicago. So Chicago was like always like a really, you know, fancy place. So I think that notion that you can create from anywhere is pretty exciting.
Yeah, no, we've enjoyed being in Chicago. We've made some really, really great connections, you know, with vendors that we use who, you know, New York has a lot, but New York also has a lot of people. And your accessibility sometimes to really create relationships. And you need those relationships in the pinch when you're like, hey, I got an order. I need to get it out in a week. Can you? And, you know, the guys here are like, yeah, we'll figure it out. And sometimes in New York, you're like, yeah, well, it sounds like a problem. So you get to the team in 3 weeks.
And we're able to go back and forth with our vendors too. Like there have been times where I've been in a vendor space while they're printing something or working on something, and we're looking at colors and getting really specific about like the way that something is being produced. And they're great about having a whole conversation in terms of, you know, figuring out how to really make it work, how the best way to get it done is. And we would never be able to do that in New York.
So kind of going back to, you know, I know Daryl, you still do work in the corporate world, right? Yeah. So you haven't. I think I respect the hell out of that because I also still have a regular job from time to time as well. So and I feel like a lot of young entrepreneurs get lost in the, oh, I'm just going to quit my job and follow my dream. And they forget that there's still bills that have to be paid. You know, the sweat equity may work for your business, but it's not going to work for your rent. What's something that you would tell a young entrepreneur?
To carry on what you just said, you know, it's like, I love the passion. I mean, passion is great, and you have to have passion, you know, for what you want to do. But passion does not pay bills, and businesses are at the core still a business. There still are dollars and cents, and if you can create and be independent, I mean, it's like do it on your own, create all your own. You know, that might be one way. But if you're truly looking to make something of a mark, and taking something as an idea and truly putting it on scale and growth, think long term of like, you might have some short term pain of like, you're gonna have to kind of like split your life, and do a little bit of the hard work to support the passion until you see the hockey stick go like, okay, now my passion is actually making more upside to where I can now begin to kind of like move away from the necessary of needing the income. And you know, I've been doing it. I've been corporate 5-ish years
since you were 6 years old. Wow,
that's yeah. There are things I love about it. I mean, there are things I love still. I mean, like, you know, I don't think I would, you know, be working as many hours as I work in corporate if I did enjoy what I do. Now, will I want to do that forever and do both these forever? Absolutely not. You know, time does move on, and you do begin to realize that, you know, you're getting kind of tired and you want to kind of focus on the things you want to enjoy. So, you know, the path is, you know, to kind of move in one direction, but it's needed to think about, you know, where does your passion really require in terms of investment. It takes your time, but it takes capital at the end of the day. And if you can amass a capital raise and do it all, great. I say go for it. But you know, if you're really trying to scrap it together, and you're really vested in making it happen, then do what's necessary, and eventually, you know, you'll find your way out of it.
Mm-hmm. Do you think there is a general lack of work ethic? I feel like, I mean, we're all Midwestern boys, so I think that's just probably naturally ingrained in us. I love that you even made a hockey stick metaphor that spoke to my heart right there. You know, Detroit and Chicago, very big rivalry. Anyways, but I just feel like people put something up and it's like this instant gratification of, you don't have to do shit to put a picture on Instagram and get a bunch of people to like you or think it's cool. Or I just feel like there's a lot of just laziness lately. Do you feel like that's something that washes people out of the brand world or the fashion world, where they think that they're going to be an overnight success and they don't realize, yeah, you know what, I'm still going to my day job and I'm doing this and I'm on fire about it because I'm so driven to do this. I'm willing to work as hard as I am.
I think this almost goes back to what you mentioned at the very beginning, when you were asking me about what it was like being an artist, but also understanding how important the work is and the science of business that kind of goes with it. I have had a very different background than Daryl. I've never worked in a corporate office ever. You know, I went to school, and right out of school, I was being a crazy bartender at big nightclubs and like making cool art at night with like crazy people. And it always kind of went in that direction. And then I started doing photography, and I would be on shoots and I would need to creative director produce something. So you just freaking figure it out, you know? And I think that there are a lot of people right now in this age who have sort of an Instagram mindset, and it is kind of a lazy artistry. And I don't ever want to bag on what other people are doing or their art or their thoughts. But if you really want to get somewhere in life as an artist, you do have to understand how taxes work. You do have to understand how production works. You do have to understand all of the things. And if there's someone who can't pick up one of the plates, you have to pick it up. You know, so over the course of years, I learned how to do so many things that were sort of very business-like, And it makes our relationship work really well, because Daryl and I can also kind of go to our own sort of things and work on a lot of things, and I can deal with vendors and he can deal with vendors, and then we come back together and everything sort of works out. But if there's any message to be sent to people out there who actually want to make a living as an artist or want to make a living in fashion, you're going to have to work really hard. You're going to have to wear all the hats. You should be educating yourself about every aspect of it, every single moment that you possibly can. And the good thing about it is there are amazing resources out there for this. You know, there are so many resources to learn these business sort of aspects or other aspects of, as I mentioned, like producing things or art directing things or figuring out like pure branding and marketing stuff and how all of that kind of works with SEO. Like if you can build a domain, and there's a tiny 1% of our population who can build a full domain just off of Instagram and being cool on Instagram, and they can sell some cool stuff. But if you're trying to make that happen now, I think that my best advice would be pivot, figure out what it is you really want to do, and then learn how to make it work, because you can make it work, but you've got to be an artist who also understands business.
Yeah. We're all good until I bring out the Excel spreadsheet. And then literally it's like I'm chasing him down. I was like, this is the meaning of life is Excel. You don't understand. Life is void.
They're so ugly. They're so fucking ugly.
Daryl's got his formulas. He's got his.
D lookups, H lookups, pivot tables. I just like you will understand the art of spreadsheets.
There's definitely a sexiness to that. I appreciate it.
I'm telling you,
absolutely
it's an artistry. So. But yeah, the idea that life is a marathon applies greatly to this. We get mesmerized by the overnight successes of like, you know, that one chance you got something on the Kylie Jenner who like it blew up and you became like an overnight. And those are like the 1% out of the 99%. And a lot of the 99% still become really successful.
Yeah.
They still like, they do the hard work, they move up the needle, they move up. But there are a lot who get really upset when out of the first 4 months, they're not in the 1%. And they're like, you know, but so-and-so did it. They got it on this person. And it just kind of took off. And, you know, there's just sometimes the roulette wheel of like luck where it happens, but it's a lot of times luck.
But you still have to have staying power. Like that's the thing with like, let's say you get something on Kanye West, like Antisocial Social Club, for instance. That brand, I don't know if you've seen the t-shirt that he wore that obviously blew up. What have you done since then? Like that's the same, it's like the same, there's no ideation, there's no next iteration. It's just like, okay, yeah, you got your t-shirt on somebody and probably sold, you know, millions of dollars worth of t-shirts off that one thing, but what's next? Like, and that's why I think it speaks to your work ethic, and you're constantly creating. You have to have a next step.
Yes,
it's the idea between an idea and a brand. So as my friend Berfumia says, like, I wake up every morning, have great ideas, but let me tell you which one I can make work into like something that's sustainable. So if you're going into like, you know, I want to make quick, fast, then there's a path for that. And that's exactly what it's going to be. But if you do get that rare opportunity and you don't have like the what next, or like, you know, this was the vision of where this would take me, and have that ready to go, because it's sometimes harder and scarier to get that big moment, because then the pressure comes down on you, like, because then you're like, your sophomore thing better be really good. Because you can go from the heights to like really low bottom really, really quickly.
It's like that first album curse, like where you have like the Alanis Morissette or somebody like that has like all that pent up, you know, anxiety, you know, all of those things, and then all of a sudden it's like you only have 2 years to make your second album, and you don't have all those, you know, knocks in your life. So yeah.
And I think that we're really obsessed with the idea of like lightning striking, but the real truth is, you have to be the person carrying around like 1,000 lightning rods, and then lightning's going to strike one of them, but you've done all the work of making those 1,000 lightning rods, and you've set up the whole infrastructure for your lightning rod company. The paper is going to write about the one lightning rod that got struck, and then from there you can take all the rest of them and sort of put them into action. But that's really how to do it. It's the people who have the staying power. Yeah, they got hit by lightning, but they built this whole thing. So when you think that they're popping out of nowhere, they're not. They're just being illuminated in this moment.
Yeah, and I think most people are probably just standing out there with their own lightning rod, just waiting to get, just waiting, hoping and wishing.
Yeah.
So you kind of talked about, you know, sophomore effort, like what's the next thing, and to keep it in that kind of collegiate or high school mentality. You have a varsity collection, which I love.
Yes.
I love the, you know, the analogy of what varsity means, right? Varsity is like, if you were in high school and you saw someone on a varsity team, you look up to them. They have a responsibility. They're kind of carrying the weight of this message in this school. How do we get more people onto the varsity squad?
Good question. You know, this year, I think we've probably seen the greatest number of people, because simple things of wearing a mask gets you on the varsity squad. Believing in science, you know, believing that, you know, Fauci is really trying to save America and lives and not trying to be a political pawn. There are everyday things we can do in our lives that puts us on the varsity squad. So we're not asking anyone to run a 100-meter in 30 seconds. Like, we're literally like looking for the people who, you know, just believes in inclusivity, you know, believes in, you know, the person sitting next to you, you know, if they're gay, trans, Black, Hispanic, white, you know, whatever they are, they're at the end of the day, they're a human being.
And you're also going to stand up for them in any sort of circumstance, because that's the other thing that comes with the varsity idea is the varsity people at the school should be the ones looking out for the freshmen. And not to call people freshmen, but the idea that if anyone isn't, you know, is being placed on unequal footing, you need to be the person to step up and help them up. Yeah. You know, you need to be the person to also then even pass the microphone over, because you're the one who keeps getting it. Then you need to be the person who be like, well, this person didn't get to talk, or didn't get to say their view or voice what they want to say. You know, that's also a part of the whole varsity vibe.
Yeah. Like, you know, when you look at people like John Lewis and, you know, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who, you know, achieved such acclaim in their lives and such high position, but it was always in service of the people that in their community. So, you know, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, you know, bringing women to the forefront of, like, you know, we are not second class. We have full rights and full abilities to control our bodies and our money and our jobs and everything. You know, John Lewis, you know, when they think of him standing on the bridge on Sunday Bloody Sunday, you know, 30, 40 years ago, and then like standing on DC Plaza, looking at Black Lives Matter being spray painted on the street, and thinking about, I'm sure back in 1969, there was never a day he thought that he would ever be able to stand in DC and see, you know, so many people in the US, you know, stand in support of Black Lives Matter. So, you know, varsity is this elevation that when you do get to be in that place, you don't become the diva. You still are, to Bret's point, you still are watching out for the freshmen, because they have the same ability to achieve the same things you do. Sometimes they just need a motivation to say you can, or for someone to clear the path for them to remove a barrier and clear the playing field. So it's a really, you know, embracing varsity, you know, as opposed to, you know, some ideas of, you know, I'm the best, so, you know, you should just look at to me to be what I am, the best.
Yeah, I think we're going through a really crazy time in our society too. There's been a certain point where I feel like the whole world is sort of like, we've flipped this really scary rock over, and all of this awful stuff kind of rushed out of it. There was a whole point, we've had this conversation before, where in media, like Bon Appetit, you find out the editor wasn't treating his people right. There were, you know, actors on some of the most famous TV shows where it comes out that they were being super racist and dumbasses. And it was sort of in every aspect of society. And the aftermath of it has been this really great understanding of like, well, yeah, there aren't enough stories that feature people who aren't just white straight men, and there aren't enough writers in those rooms, and there aren't enough artists producing things, and there aren't enough actors doing. We need to create all of these, you know, extra spaces for this. And simultaneously, what I think is some of the best art is also being made right now. Like, I think about Misha Green's Lovecraft Country as one of the best TV shows I've ever seen in my life. And just the way it's telling a story and the way it's talking about history. And I think that, like, to kind of put a hopeful message, because we talk about how our varsity collection, there's a certain amount of hope that's also attached to it. But we actually really believe that this transition that we're about to go through, like, we went through this really horrible period this year. And by the end of the year, we really believe that we're going to be going into a different direction. And it is going to be more about hope. And it is going to be more about, like, just as a society as a whole, instead of tearing people down, it's going to be more about standing up for them. It's going to be more about being that varsity person who cares about the people around them and is making space for everyone.
No more angry design.
Yeah.
No.
I can't do any more angry design. I'm done with angry.
Well, it's funny because I was actually, leads me into my next thing that I was going to ask, is that, you know, obviously we have an election that's less than 3 weeks away. You haven't done any anti-Trump or you know, using his image in some negative way. And I have to respect that, because I think to what your brand is about, and talking about what we talked about earlier, saying love is love is love, is like, love is the only thing that's going to cut through. Trying to tear somebody else down isn't going to get your message across.
Absolutely.
And obviously it seemed like that was a conscious...
That's been the point. That's been the point this whole time, because we have people who come up to us and they're like, you really should make this shirt. And I'm like, I understand your anger and I understand your message, but literally the only thing we can do, again, as people and artists, is take our gifts, what we do, and make it the most positive, inclusive message, still with very, very specific, we believe Black Lives fucking matter. We believe love is fucking love. That's what it needs to be about. But we don't want to go down that path of, you know, Xing out people on like t-shirts or saying, you know, really horrible things about other people, because it's all cheap. You really can do.
It's cheap and easy.
The good shit. Like you just can only do the good shit.
Yeah. I mean, you know, to me, some of that is easy design.
Yeah, it's cheap.
I mean, you know, we could have designed, you know, a anti-45 t-shirt eons ago. I mean, we were asked in 2016, you know, because we started in 16, so which was when, you know, Hillary and Trump was running, and like, you know, or you're gonna do an anti-Trump. I was like, he will never grace any garment.
You don't want to give him that much power.
That's not the intent. The intent is, I think people can look on our website and pretty much figure out where the brand leans, but do it in a positive message, without having to go to the lowest common denominator design. So yeah, there's a lot of brands out there who have it.
Your message carries enough weight and is strong enough to, like you said, you don't need to have somebody that you don't like. It takes too much, it gives them too much power and too much credit over what you're doing. And it's like junk food. It takes away from, you know, it's fast and easy and cheap, but then afterwards you're like, you kind of feel empty and you're like, we did this for what reason? You know, what does this say about what our brand is? Where
would you wear that after a year?
Exactly. And when Trump, you know, 10 years from now, when, you know, God willing, you guys are going to have a giant company, like, then you're going to go, oh yeah, we did this Trump collection. Like, it's not going to mean anything to your...
Oh my God, even saying it that way. I think I have a high coming in already when you said that. I was like, oh, that's a nightmare.
Speaking of collections, who are some of your fashion icons?
Oh, wow. That's a hard thing to cross over. So in terms of brands, or in terms of like people,
I would just say icon, somebody that you've just been like. I had a conversation the other day about David Bowie and how there'll never be another David Bowie in Iman, and how that just the two of them were just oozed cool, and they were just icons of fashion and style and lifestyle. And for me, like those are people that I would put up on a pedestal like that.
Yeah, I mean, definitely David Bowie, Andrew Warhol for me. Nina Simone, for different reasons. Like I also, this is a very sort of metaphysical way of thinking about people, but I feel like that there are certain people who come into the world and they're almost divine in their presence. And Bowie was one, so was Warhol, Malcolm X, just these people who came, and the wake of their presence was so profound in what they were doing that it touched so many people. And some of these people are definitely the forces that I have in my head sometimes when I'm working as an artist, or when we're sitting down and having conversations about what we're creating and how it would be almost an homage to some of these people.
Yeah. But you take somebody, I've always been a big admirer of someone like Prince, who designed for himself. I mean, he was honest to him, and who he was and what he wanted to portray. And it wasn't about trying to please a fashion magazine or please, what society wanted him to wear, but really, just taking his own voice and spirit and conveying it into, fashion. And I mean, he changed all the time. I mean, so when you look at somebody like that, you just have to kind of get inspired of, well, what are you really trying to say? He could do it through music and through fashion. He was just such a multi-talented, and and all the when you put Prince and Bowie and all those guys together, you could just see a spirit of talented businessmen in themselves. I mean, they knew how to brand themselves, and create entities that just extend beyond their time, and are just going to be kind of always lauded over, not only just for their talent, but just the look they gave, that anytime you hear their name, you immediately know, like, I remember this, I remember that, I remember what you can tell exactly what they look like.
Well, they're one word names. You say Prince, you say Bowie. It's like saying Madonna.
You say Madonna. I mean, Madonna is
Madonna.
She defined an era. She defined a genre and a generation.
And she inspired thousands of people who, like Bowie, like Prince, used their fashion, their look, their music in their own work in a way that really was a celebration of these artists as well.
Yeah. I think the trick is you have to get a one-word name. Pink, Cher. I mean, when you got a one-word name, you got to start.
I'd have to throw Lenny Kravitz in there. You could just say Lenny. I think you'd know what you're talking about.
If you say Lenny and music, everyone knows who you're talking about.
That's a guy who every time I see him, I'm like, I can never be that cool. Like I can't wear leather pants and a giant.
He's a whole other planet of cool. Like he just, like there are people on the world, and then there's Lenny, and he like should be walking around Mars or something, and it's like it's his own palace, like the guy from The Watchmen who's like on the moon, like looking down at you. Lenny Kravitz is the fashionable version of that dude. He's fucking amazing.
You can already imagine that, Prince and Bowie are already like got a seat set for him. Like, when you're ready.
That's
we already got your seat already.
Yeah, that's a dinner table I want to have a meal at.
And I'll just be there and like serve some food. Would you like another like plate of fish?
Yeah, actually, I'll cook. It'll be.
Oh, perfect.
There we go. We're all set.
Yeah, I'll bust the tables.
So talking about Lenny, I was just thinking of he has a very famous Men's Health cover that's out right now, and fitness and wellness is a huge part of my life, and it keeps me sane in a lot of ways. So is mindfulness and wellness and fitness a part of your life, and how do you integrate it into your everyday life?
I don't think I've ever stopped working out since I started grad school, or finished grad school. Yeah, I mean, even during the pandemic, in March and April when the gyms closed, I had to find something. So I started doing any online I could find, even going outdoors in Chicago in April, when it's like no one wants to go out there and run. But, for me, juggling corporate plus, a growth startup business, I don't know how I would do it without having some aspects of yoga, Pilates, and workout that I do, because I just can't imagine sitting in a room in front of a laptop 24/7 and not taking a break to do something, exercise oriented, and just to take your mind. You have to dissociate yourself from something to really be able to really like break through some things. I mean, I've had some of my best ideas, not being in front of the laptop or being in the studio, but sometimes on a run, or sometimes like you don't stop thinking. But when you take yourself out of your normal space, and let your mind kind of just wander a little bit, I've been a master ever since probably 7th, 8th grade. I have been the worst procrastinator. I don't do anything until it's literally like at the pressure point. I know it drives this one absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, because I'm actually super anal and OCD.
Oh, that's
and, like,
funny.
I like to, like I'm super prepared, and I'm like, okay, a month from now we're gonna be doing this and this and this, and he's like, what are you even talking about? Like, I already have this shit written down. Yeah.
But I'm the person who. It's not that I'm not thinking about it. Like I know exactly where everything is in terms of what needs to get done, but I make the best decision when it's at the pressure point. I mean, I did all my chem papers.
Yeah.
I was a management consultant for, many years. So you always are working on the fly. Like you had to get things done in like rapid time. So, for me, the exercise and the yoga and stuff like that is my ability to like kind of work through, like, I think I want to do it this way, or I think I want to do this. I like that design, I like this. And sometimes when I'm like away from it all, and then I go like, that's it. Like, it just like, I'm done. And I write it down somewhere, and usually we go on.
To your point with the working out thing, sorry, Bret, not to cut you off. I feel the same way when I'm OCD about cleaning my house. And I feel like that's when because like I'm getting things in order, but my mind's going other ways. Or if I'm on a run, that's my thing. So Bret, what's your thing?
No, I am really into the whole Greek triad concept of you take care of your mind and your body as much as you take care of your spirit. Obviously, being a big creative, and I'm like the way on the end of the creative scale that's almost not schizophrenic, but like I'll look at the trees sometimes and they'll be exploding. I mean, like I'm Salvador Dali. I don't need drugs. I am drugs type of guy. So I really believe to balance all of that out, because I get moments of being hyper creative and then I'll kind of crash. It's sort of the way that my mental system kind of works. And I've always sort of had it, and the way I manage it as best as I can is also through exercise and mindfulness. So I also do a lot of yoga, but you have to, if you have a gift like being creative or anything else, you have to also think how you're balancing your life by honoring your body. So I also like to cook. I try and spend a lot of my time also like cooking keto. And when I work out, I'm always thinking about how I'm sort of taking care of myself, so I can also, like go out and have fun and the whole thing. But then I also think the spiritual part of it is also super important, where you have moments every day where you're thinking about like, what am I putting out in the world? How am I treating myself? How am I being the best version of myself, the best business partner, the best friend, the best artist, the best son, the best brother, the best man I can possibly be. And a lot of that comes from treating yourself well and treating the people around you well.
Yeah, I have a very, I meditate every day, and it's more not even just trying to be, just disconnect from everything which you do. It really is, to your point, there's a very high element of gratitude and just being thankful and just sitting there and kind of saying like, of course, especially as creatives and entrepreneurs, you get caught up in like, oh, this business thing didn't happen, or this didn't happen, all the things that didn't happen. And right now you're sitting in your studio surrounded by your brand, by your clothing, and you kind of go like, this did happen though. These things are real. And so I think that's that reminder that I always have to remind myself that I have so much. There's so much abundance. And, I think my thing is kind of learning to do better with less. And trying to always, that's why I started getting into, we were talking about Greeks, and getting into fasting and doing things like that, just kind of really to be appreciative, not just because it's trendy, but to be appreciative of where my next meal comes from, or how, sacred each thing I put in my body is, or a piece of clothing that I put on my body. Like everything has to really, really mean something to me.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, the fasting thing, I'm kind of not quite there yet. So
it's a mindset.
Hard for me when my doctor's like, I do a cholesterol and get a fast for 8 hours. I'm like, are you kidding me?
But that's the thing you always think about. It's like when you go on a diet, or you go paleo, or you go keto, you think of all the shit that you can't have, right? Not all the great stuff that you can have that falls within that. And like, honestly, the fasting thing for me, I was such a breakfast person. I was like, there's no way I can go to the gym without eating breakfast and all this. And then you kind of undo that mindset, and your body gets accustomed to it, and you kind of get in your little groove. And then, you don't have to, it's kind of like pick and choose what you want. You don't have to do it strict all the time.
Yeah, no, I'm more of a, a grazer. Like I'm not a big meal person, so I'm more of the, if I'm hungry, I'll eat something.
Yeah.
But like when I stress, I have to make myself eat, because like I will literally get into a road of like, I just gotta get this done. And like hours will go by, I'm like, okay, I need to eat something. But the idea that meditation, mindfulness, just being able to step away and find a center point. And sometimes different people have different center points. Some people it's cleaning, some people it's going for a run, some people it's just kind of sitting in a dark room, just having a moment. But I think everybody needs to find what is that space you can get yourself into. Particularly this year, with the pandemic, it's just very easy to get on a roller coaster, and you can let all the stresses. I mean, I can't watch most of the news because if you listen to it, plus, you're already in the middle of it. So, you're dealing with it, from whatever angle, like, you're trying to find a job, or, you got to get employment, this and the other. And then you're hearing about all the additional stuff of like the election, and is there going to be a vaccine, and this and another. Plus you're trying to work. There's just enough stressors in our lives that if you don't find some kind of way to like truly open yourself up to, there are good things, there's beauty, still there's things that are happening because of the pandemic that the world's never even seen. There are animals roaming around and we're breathing fresh air that we probably haven't had a chance to breathe in 10 years. So you just have to find the ways of like, I've taken advantage of walking this year. Just taking an hour walking around the city. I've seen areas that like I've been here for 20 plus years I've never even seen in my neighborhood. And I never would have until there was a pandemic that made me go walking as much as I can to get out of my house. And it's like, so do I need to stop that after the pandemic? No.
Only in November in Chicago. I know those Midwestern winters. So.
Yeah. Well, Chicago in more like
Chicago in winter can be cool.
January, February is the
your walk might be quicker.
Right. That's when the ice giants are coming, and Jon Snow is out there at the lake waiting for you.
I'm determined to go for a walk one way or the other this winter. Even if it's snowy, I'll get my boots out and just like for 20 minutes, I'm gonna go somewhere just to get outside of outside the house.
Sound off parka. I'm putting that in for my second second request.
I love it. I'm completely into it.
God.
Let's do a whole winter collection.
That fits the brand.
A sound off for you two. You two can just go to town and cut and sew all you want to.
Yeah.
I'll just take the profits.
Yep. Fair enough. See, that's why you're the businessman.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I like to end all these interviews with kind of my version of a couple questions from the Proust questionnaire. It's just kind of get to know a little bit about you. So just a little rapid fire. I'll do Daryl first. And what did you learn about yourself in the pandemic?
I learned that I don't need as much as I think.
Who are your heroes of fiction?
Oh, wow. Anything Matrix. Give me a Neo and the whole Matrix series. I'm all about it.
What is your greatest fear?
My greatest fear. Not leaving a mark.
I love that. Well, Bret, you got a little bit of a cheater on the test exam, so you know the questions. What did you learn about yourself during the pandemic?
I have this philosophy of keystone habits, where every morning you do certain things, and then I just kept adding to it, and it really kept me sort of sane. Like, no matter what, everything's always clean, the bed's always made, like certain things are always done. And because I have a little OCD, but that really helped me kind of get through it.
I respect that. Who are your heroes of fiction?
So I'm going to throw it back a little bit just because it's October, but Ray Bradbury's October Country, I am rereading it right now because there's something very lyrical and romantic about it that also feels very Chicago in autumn for me.
All of those Ray Bradburys, just like it like seems like all that stuff's coming true, so it just kind of freaks me out. What is your greatest fear?
I think we probably share like the greatest fear thing. I mean, I'm really focused on leaving, I think, a legacy for my life, you know? So the greatest fear would be feeling like I didn't accomplish my potential in the world, and my potential would be to make beautiful things and to leave a mark.
I love it. So where can we find more about you? Give us all the socials, all the handles.
Oh, pretty easy. Sound Off Design, pretty much in any channel. So Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You type in Sound Off Design, you'll find all the social media handles, and even the website is soundoffdesign.com.
Beautiful. Daryl, Bret, you guys are absolute fucking rock stars. I love the brand. I'm so excited to keep watching it grow. I'm definitely going online to buy a Savage Beast sweatshirt because I love that. I'm going to have that big old tiger on there.
That's perfect.
It's a big tiger.
Yeah.
It's a big tiger.
Yeah, we'll hopefully get the tiger off our back this year and keep
We put it on the front. That's the shield.
Exactly. Gentlemen, have a wonderful day, and I hope to catch up with you soon.
You too. This was great.
Take care.
Enjoyed it.